excited. This is just one weekend. We have about 14 or 13 days or so to the elections, and there's still a whole lot more to talk about. There's still a whole lot more to know, even as we all gear up and make informed decisions, towards the elections. Very important. Also important is if you know anyone around you who has their PVC, try to encourage them to vote. It is very important. The numbers are extremely important, and as we all know, this is not business as usual. This election is not business as usual. There's something very defining about this particular election. Some people will say, it's normal. Every 4 years we go through election cycle. It's a normal thing, and let's just do what we have to do and move on. No, we all know the current state of the nation. We know if we were to do a diagnosis of the state of the nation, we all know what the results would be. Even out there, it's not easy, but then even in here, it's just not what it's supposed to be. Let me put it that way. And there's a lot of people that are looking forward to greater things, better things. We can't afford to lose our best hand to the Western world. We can't afford that. And that is almost what seems to be happening with the Japa syndrome and all of that. And right now, the UK is currently recruiting teachers massively, and what would become of our education sector if we have to lose the best of the best, and then we are left with like very few. Look at what we have right now. We have one doctor to 6,000 people. That is not good statistics. That is not looking good, and it all boils down to where we are at as a country. So if the country's environment is conducive, of course people would have little or no reason to leave the country. So we need a government that cares about the people, that cares about the country, and that cares about the progress of the country. So that is the kind of government that we need. And for us to elect the right government, we need to know the right people. For us to know the right people, we need to get informed. And the best way for us to get informed is by asking. That is how you get knowledge. And then you can correctly apply the knowledge that you have at the polls. All right? Very important. So tell one or two people around you have your PVC. Please do come out and vote. They've allowed the students to go home. The NUC has said, okay, the students can, the schools will be shut for the next 3 weeks so that the students can go out and vote. There's a lot of reactions to that one. A lot of people are saying, you're saying students can go out and vote, but you didn't allow them to go out and collect their PVC. I don't know how well that is going to go down, but I know that the conversation will definitely continue. Do we have enough students that have their PVCs? Were they able to collect their PVCs? If you're allowing them to vote, do they have what they need to vote? A lot of questions going around that particular one. And of course, we still have the money issue, the naira scarcity issue. That's also still a problem. The fuel scarcity is also still a problem. There's so many things. But then let's look through the trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. My name is Omobola Sandra, and you're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. And I will be having Fuhad Sahid joining in via the phone line as we dig deep into the trending stories on the front pages. Good morning, Fuhad.
Good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm still not sure yet.
Okay. You were just drinking.
As you drink water. Well, even if I drink water, I can't drop cup.
You just find a way to drop it.
It's okay. It's all right.
But the first situation is getting better, Sandra. This is my own observation this morning.
So when you say it's getting better, do you mean the queues or the price?
Yeah, the queues are thinning out. No, not as long as we've been having it around the.
But people are still buying at 300, 350.
Yes, maybe for the smaller independent marketers, but for the major filling stations, I think it's between 85, 190, 195. And what I'm saying is that for the mega stations, the long queues that we've been seeing for the last 2-3 months are gradually getting reduced. So I think it's getting better. I think we can work with the 7 days of the GNG of NNPC, even though I have my reservations about this. But I'm not giving a report as a result
They're
of
working
my
on the
observation this
glitches. They're working on the glitches. It's okay. That's all right then. So we'll just give them the next 7 days and see, how things will pan out. All right, let's see what we have trending on the front pages of our papers. I'll start with the Nation newspaper, and the major headline: more banks close branches for lack of cash to pay customers. And the writers to that, we have Cash Crunch bites harder, and NSA scarcity affecting military operations. Hey. Okay. So relief is far from cash-strapped Nigerians as more banks are shutting their branches. I know that the Zenith Bank closed all of its branches nationwide, and as it is now, there are a lot of banks that are also closing up, Sterling, Fidelity, and Co. And what we have as regards this particular one also is that they're also talking about hoarding. CBN is still, emphasizing on the fact that hoarding is still the major issue.
How much did he print? You should tell us how much. He mopped up over 2 trillion. How much has he printed and how did he distribute it?
Okay, but
we not just continue to talk about hoarding. No,
I'm looking at another aspect of the hoarding now, because it's not just the banks that he's talking to. He's saying because of the attitude of some Nigerians in hoarding the money, even those that don't really need the money are rushing to get it, then they'll keep and not spend. So looking at that aspect of hoarding too.
Sandra, that excuse still doesn't work. You don't understand. It still doesn't work. I think the explanation should be, okay, this is how much I have printed and this is how much I've distributed. As at the last count and the last information we have, he was able to mop up almost about 2.5, 2.9 trillion naira. And didn't pay more than 200 billion naira. How does that make any sense?
Well, is it possible that
and people, you say hoarding? Yes.
Is it possible that, due to fear of the unknown or, fear of a deadline or whatnot, is it possible that people are actually withdrawing and just keeping the cash at home? So it's not going in circulation. People are just, holding on to whatever cash that they can get. Is that also a possibility that could be a problem, a clog in this process?
It's not impossible, Sandra. It's not impossible, but the reality is that he has not printed enough.
Okay.
And that's why people are desperate to just lay their hands on anyone that is available and probably keep or use. So look, scarcity would naturally cause hoarding. Because people, of course, are desperate to lay their hands on anyone that is available and because they don't know when the next one will be available. Just imagine how the banks are closed down. Again, we keep emphasizing this thing. Nobody is saying whatever plans we had. You trying to fight vote buying, trying to fight people collecting ransom, people who are kept illicit funds. All we are saying is that, look, as you have been able to mop up, release enough for ordinary Nigerians. You understand? Release enough for people to be able to get access to that small cash they need to do their daily transactions and live their normal lives. So where we are, the bank just doesn't have the money. So where is all the money coming from? You need what to see that you owe. That's why you knew what we did in the office now to sort ourselves out. So where is the money coming from? I think the man should just wake up to reality, eat the humble part, and know that whatever he did, he has failed. Unless he votes this policy and let Nigerians live their normal life.
Just as you have
elections, he will shut down the country.
Just as you
so after election, what happens? Or before the election, what then happens to Nigerians?
It's okay.
All right.
All right. Well, that's what he's saying, or that's what they're looking at. One of the CBN directors, that's what they're looking at as being a problem, because they're saying if the currency is circulating the way it should and not being hoarded, then we shouldn't have a problem. So things can only get better if people start spending the money that they have hoarded. But then also another question is, why would people hoard money? But then, imagine you're hungry and then you're hungry but you have cash and you're scared that if I run out, how will I get another one? So you don't spend. I don't know. But then
I think it's a comfortable excuse. For me, it doesn't even work. It doesn't make any sense. I think the man should print more money, get more money in circulation, especially the new notes. Let people have access to these funds and live their normal lives. I don't agree for me.
Okay. All right. Let's also look at now the CBN as regards a court ruling, because what we have now is SANs are saying CBN must obey Supreme Court ruling. So senior lawyers said that the CBN was bound by the Supreme Court's interim injunction restraining the federal government from enforcing today's deadline to end the use of old Naira notes, because there were speculations that the CBN, not being a party to the suit, by Kaduna, Kogi, and Zamfara states may not be bound by the order to refuse to comply. Okay, but some senior advocates of Nigeria who spoke in separate interviews said complying with the order by the CBN was not optional. So we're still on that particular one. I don't think there's any part where the CBN said that they were not going, but then I mean there are reports of it, so let's look critically at it. I know that there are still a lot of people who are still uncomfortable with the fact that they think or they feel that the Supreme Court does not have jurisdiction over over that particular matter, looking at why did the state governors go straight to the Supreme Court? Why did they jump over the state and the federal high court and moving straight to the Supreme Court? Some people are of that opinion, but then the lawyers are saying the Supreme Court is the repository of the law. And certainly, CBN is not above the law. So no matter how big the CBN is, the law is bigger. And there's something, Falano. Yes, I was looking for that.
Yeah.
Yes, there's something Femi Falano, SAN, also said that it is public knowledge that the federal government has filed a plenary objection challenging the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to hear and determine the case. In the interim, the federal government of Nigeria and its agencies are bound by the valid and subsisting ex parte order of the Supreme Court until it is set aside by the same Supreme Court. So whether or not it has jurisdiction or not, or whether or not they have the power, obey it, because the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court and it has given an order. So it is still that same Supreme Court that will now come back and say, okay, what we said earlier, we're no longer. So that's what the report is saying. And the alternative is to compound the ongoing anarchy and chaos in the land. That's the alternative. If
there's no other alternative, we are country governed by rules and laws. Yeah, Sandra. Okay. And the CBN, the federal government, and must obey. Simple as ABC. Until the CBN says, or the Supreme Court says otherwise, we are bound to obey that, interim injunction.
Well, so as simple as it is, whether the CBN was a party to the case or not, the CBN is an agency of the federal government of Nigeria. And when a judgment is directed at the federal government of Nigeria, it binds all the agencies of the government. So, yes, exactly. So also looking at it from another point of view, now we have here Zamfara governor justifying, why they went to court. Said he and his colleagues took the federal government to court to save the country. And he said that those against their action and subsequent temporary triumph were misguided. He's saying, I'm quoting now, I am fully convinced that those against our action and victory at the Supreme Court are either misguided or blinded by political chauvinism. I and my Kaduna and Kogi states counterparts found it necessary to approach the Supreme Court in order to save the economy of Nigeria from being plunged into more crisis and to relieve the pains that ordinary Nigerians are experiencing in the face of scarcity of both the old and new notes. So it's just common sense to say that it's just common sense. Make the new notes available for day-to-day business transaction before the old notes are declared illegal. Simple. That's it. That's what they are.
I don't know why you're going round and round. Sandra, all Nigerians want is they go to the ATM, they want 10,000, they want 20,000, they want 5,000, they're able to get, and they move on with their normal life. Is that too big to demand from the CBN governor and the president?
All right. Well, we'll see. February 15 is just around the corner, just next week. I think Wednesday, Thursday. So we'll see what exactly would be, the outcome I
think it's part of the military standard. I wanted you to highlight a bit what the military is saying about this policy that is affecting the operation. I don't know if you want to highlight that a bit here.
Okay. All right, we're looking at the point or the part where we have the NSA also saying something I've been trying to get it. I didn't get it. That's why I wasn't able to read the report from the papers. But then, looking at it, from the peripheral of the headline in itself, just the headline in itself, saying that scarcity is affecting military operations. Okay, I have it. The economic crisis caused by the scarcity of the redesigned Naira note is affecting some aspects of military operations. That's coming from the NSA, National Security Advisor, by the way, Major General Babagana Mongunu, and according to him, he said that some soldiers are serving in areas without access to digital transactions.
I wanted you to highlight that, and that's why I wanted you to really highlight that story.
Okay. Some soldiers are serving in areas without access to digital transactions. So with this CBN policy, it has thrown them into financial difficulties. And if our soldiers, we are battling insecurity, and if our soldiers are not, their welfare is not, being taken care of at this point, one would think that what exactly do you think would be the motivation for them to keep moving forward? Well, move apart from that, but then that is a serious problem, don't you think, Fuad?
It's a serious problem. Again, like I said, I wanted you to highlight that so that people understand that Nigeria is not Lagos. It's not limited to Lagos alone. And if the military says it's affecting their operations, I'm sure they will not want to give us the details. But the reality is that they have what's going on in areas that are not banked. There are vendors working with the military. I'm sure the pictures cooking for the guys at the battle lines there, holding fort for the country and all of that. They have to pay those people to cook for them, give them supplies and all of that. And nothing will be done in cash. Those are far-flung areas where there's probably no internet, no banks, anywhere, anything. So again, when you look at these things, and that's why we say that, look, the student government can just sit down in the cozy of his office and think that, look, you will force this thing down the throat of Nigeria. Again, where is the synergy? Where is it working with? In the minimum, even the Minister of Finance, if you remember, when the policy was announced, like she was not carried along. If you remember, even the Minister of Finance, that is supposed to be working with him, to fiscal and monetary aspect of this policy. Like he was not even informed. Were the security advisors informed? Were the service chiefs informed? Because some of these things without implications, you have to take even the INEC to go and sit down with him. Obviously, there was not even no synergy. At a period when we expect that we're going to be conducting elections. So it means that it was just a decision between him and the president without recourse to the fact that, look, these things are going to have implications on so many other things. So where is the synergy? Is that how to run a country? Where is the critical thinking in all of this?
All right. More details on pages 4 and 5 of the Nation newspaper as regards the lack of cash, banks closing, NSA saying that scarcity is affecting military operations. The senior advocates of Nigeria saying that the CBN must obey the Supreme Court ruling, and also as regards the jurisdiction question or not, you can get all of the details on pages 4 and 5 of the Nation newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here varsities to close from February 22nd, and that is on page 6. So the students have been given 3 weeks off to go and carry out their franchise on February 25 and March 11. But then there's the question, Fuad, of why were they not allowed to go home and pick up their PVCs? If they don't have their PVCs, how would they have?
Valid question.
How would they now vote now that you have released them?
A lot of them registered, but the schools were open before the distribution of the PVCs. So a lot of them, I'm sure, were not able to pick up their PVCs, except those ones that really, really has badly in school to go do that. So I think we just have to move on. I think the reason for closing the school is quite understandable for security reasons. Again, there's a whole lot of insecurity moving around the coming election. So it's just nice that we have these kids back with their parents when the elections are going on. After we sort out the elections, they can go back to school. But again, it was unfortunate that, at the point when the schools were open, when the PVCs were to be distributed, and a lot of them could not pick up their PVCs. But again, we have to move on. It is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Also on the front page of the Nation, EFCC appeals contempt ruling on Bauer. That is on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. So what we have is that the EFCC has appealed the ruling of a Kogi State High Court that ordered the remand of its chairman, Abdul Rashid Bawa, for contempt. And they said they filed a stay of execution of the orders issued by the Kogi state, or by the Kogi court. All right, and more of the details on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here, Boss Mustafa heads Presidential Transition Committee. As is expected, he's the secretary to the government. All right, so what we have as regards that particular story, that's supposed to be on page 6. And yes, and what we have is that the president yesterday approved a Presidential Transition Committee in preparation for a smooth transition ahead of the forthcoming general election. So the PTC is to be headed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa. And also, the President has signed the Executive Order number 14 of 2023 on the facilitation and management of the presidential transitions. So these are contained in a statement by the Director of Information in the office of the SGF, that is Mr. Willie Bassi. So the new council, with membership drawn from various sectors of government, including heads of security agencies, will be inaugurated by Boss Mustafa on February 14th at the conference hall of the office of the SGF. More details on page 6 of the Nation newspaper.
That's a good one, Sandra. Sorry, at least it shows the commitment. It further shows the commitment of the president to the transition process. The committee, as they set up, so again, just to show that the president is committed a transition of power. But again, beyond all of the committee things, let us solve the problem of the naira scarcity, the fuel scarcity, and then, of course, the also insecurity. That's the bigger one for me as commitment to the transition. Right. Not just the setting up of the committee.
Okay, it's also important that you hand over a healthy country, or at least a strong enough country, to the next person. All right, now on page 7, also on above the masthead of the Nation newspaper, we also have NDIC set to pay 30 failed banks depositors. NDIC, that's Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, has said it has realized enough funds to pay all depositors and creditors of all the 30 closed microfinance, primary mortgage, and deposit money banks. So they called on the depositors and the creditors of affected banks to come for verification and payment of the money that are in excess of their guaranteed sum. So basically what it means is, if you have a bank in any of the if you have an account in any of the banks that were closed or shut down in recent times, you can have access to your cash now. I think a certain percentage, I don't know if it's a certain percentage or all, but then that's what they are saying. So the deposit money banks, primary mortgage banks, payment service, mobile money operators, they are all insured up to 500,000 naira per depositor. Very unfortunate. So if you have more than 500,000, that is unfortunately the only thing that you have access to. While those of microfinance banks, who are insured up to 200,000 naira per depositor per bank. All right, that's all that you'll be able to have access to, but at least you'll be able to get something. Okay, so that's on page 7. And finally, from the Nation newspaper, over 20,000 dead in Turkey and Syria earthquake. Very unfortunate. Over 100 hours after, and the experts, disaster experts say 72 hours is the time frame that you have to, if you want to get any survivors from any disaster. And now we have over 100 hours after, meaning that there could be more. There could be a surge on the death toll in Turkey and Syria. Although
as they keep excavating, they keep bringing out dead bodies. That's also the reality.
And the cold weather is also not, helping the situation at all. The cold weather, very unfortunate one. More details on page 28 of the Nation newspaper. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. We're moving on now to the Guardian newspaper. Let's see what we have trending on there. The major headline: Buhari prepares for May 29, sets up transition council. And we have riders, gives 2 slots to successor. 2023 elections, federal government orders closure of varsities for 3 weeks. Lecturers will swear to oath of neutrality, says INEC. INEC laments 1,241 pre-election suits, 6 pro bono service from NBA. So, to demonstrate his readiness to vacate office on May 29, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, yesterday set the ball rolling for his handover 2 weeks before conduct of the presidential election, when he approved the establishment of a presidential transition council. So, we've already discussed that, but then we also have here, this will be the third time since 1999 that a transition ceremony at the Eagle Square will usher in an entirely new administration. Olusegun Obasanjo handed over to Umar Yar'Adua. Goodluck Jonathan handed over to the president, Buhari, and now the president will be handing over to his successor, whoever that might be. The president also gave 2 slots to his successor in the Presidential Transition Council, which will see to the smooth handover after the election of a new president. And also we have here members of the council are head of the civil service of the Federation, Solicitor General of the Federation, and Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Justice, National Security Advisor, Chief of Defense Staff, the IGP, the DG of National Intelligence Agency, the DG of State Security Services, the Chief Registrar of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, Permanent Secretaries for Ministries of Defense, Interior, Finance, Foreign Affairs, Special Duties, and Intergovernmental Affairs, the FCT Administration, Information and Culture, including 2 representatives to be nominated by the president-elect after the election. All right. And also in that particular report, which is on page 6, we also have other stories. The federal government has ordered a closure of universities across the country. Also, INEC has said university teachers that will be deployed for the elections as ad hoc collation and returning officers will swear to an oath of neutrality. And the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, stated this during a meeting with vice chancellors of federal universities at NUC office. So according to Yakubu, the oath of neutrality was for all election staff in line with Section 26 of the Electoral Act 2022. So everything seems to be going, according to schedule. Everything seems to be going according to plan. INEC seems to be working really hard as regards, the preparation or preparedness for the elections.
Well, I think that's fair enough. Again, like I said, the transition committee is good. The 2 slots reserved for the president, because again, there has to be synergy between the outgoing and the incoming president. So there has to be a lot of briefings, and a lot of sharing of information on how to smoothly transfer power. So that's why that 2 slots is very important, so that there's enough shared information and communication as the transition day approaches. The other one of
the
students, I think we've talked about that.
The
teachers too, swearing to an oath of neutrality is also very good, but the ones just swearing to an oath would also want to appeal to all the lecturers, teachers, and everybody. We all want a good nation, and so we expect that they're going to be patriotic in whatever they do. It's not just even the teachers, even the core members. That we're all going to
all ad hoc staff, all
ad hoc staff, all staff and ad hoc staff would do their best to ensure that we have the best election this year. Be very patriotic in whatever they do. But swearing to an oath of neutrality also means that look, when you are found to culpable, whether you are partisan or you try to do what you are not supposed to do, it becomes a criminal matter. So you can't be prosecuted for it.
As it is now, because they have called on the universities to nominate. So even as they nominate, the INEC chairman has also maintained that they should not deploy any university teacher with obvious political leaning for the election. So there's going to be some scrutiny into staff that are being nominated. So any staff who is a card-carrying member or have participated in partisan politics should not be nominated. And those who may not be involved in partisan politics but they are known to have obvious political leanings should also not be nominated. Those who have been convicted of electoral malpractice must be excluded. There's a lot of things, criteria that will be looked into.
Just that we have not gotten, Sandra, just that we have not gotten to a point where even if you are politically exposed, you are a party member, you can still ensure you do the right thing. Let's look at the case of the United States, for example. The election between Donald Trump and Biden, the last election, there was a problem in Georgia. The results were contested and all of that. The people that conducted the election in Georgia are members of the Republican Party, supporters of Donald Trump. But when Donald Trump lost in Georgia, they still stood by the result and declared that Biden won that election, despite their being members of the Republican Party and supporters of Donald Trump. And again, we have not gotten to that level. The question will now be, how do you know if somebody has a political bias? How do you really scrutinize this thing?
That's why they said obvious.
Okay, I won't be able to detect that. I just think it's a bit difficult to know if anybody has any obvious. From
their posts on social media, from their conversations, you're able to know. Political
leaders. What the nomination process? Who nominates who?
Okay.
So if the nominators too are political bias, what do you do? The person that is supposed to nominate. So I just think that we should preach patriotism across board.
All right.
Whether now a member of the political party, when you are given the duty to serve the nation, just be patriotic with it. I think that's what I'm understanding.
Okay. More details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Valid question, if you ask me. But very quickly, remember that INEC is lamenting that they have over 1,200 pre-election cases that they need to sort. I'm just going to quickly add, we had that conversation some months back as regards, a separate commission for electoral offences. All right. Looking at it now, or looking back at then and now, looking at it now, do you think that commission is necessary, or do you think that the Electoral Offences Office in INEC should be able to handle this?
Well, that may be a bit difficult for so many reasons: finance purposes, then issues of jurisdiction, and the legal technicalities that will come with it. But this one that INEC is even talking about is because a lot of the political parties have issues with their primaries and a lot of cases. And the fact is, whenever they go to court, they drag INEC. INEC is also a charge as a party. So over 1,000 cases. And now they are looking for pro bono from lawyers who can tell, do this thing for free. And Zanda, it's just that we don't want to talk too much about this thing. I don't know what INEC will do post election, because I see the court filled up with all manner of cases after the election. So INEC, I think, should be prepared.
It's okay. Okay, so the INEC should be able to handle it. There's no need for a separate commission to look into electoral offences and electoral matters.
Electoral offences is one thing.
Electoral litigations, just litigation.
That's another issue again, and that one, there are court cases that have jurisdiction over so those cases. The problem is just that for every case, most times INEC is a party and they are dragged along, and so they also have to have representatives in terms of lawyers and legal representation, which is becoming a problem for them.
Okay, more details on page 6, as mentioned. Still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, I also have here Naira and fuel scarcity. TUC on alert. Youths begins 14-day nationwide protest. Okay, and there are riders to that in the paper on page 3. Ask Buhari to sack Emefiele, Kyari, Silva, that's the CBN governor, the CEO of NNPCL, and the Minister of State for Petroleum, respectively. NMDPRA directs, those three. They say you should sack them. NNDPRA directs filling station to accept POS. That's another rider to that particular story. So the report is saying a lot of things, but the TUC will begin to mobilize their members, students, and civil society allies for appropriate response against current scarcity of Naira notes if the situation does not improve by the weekend. And the president of TUC, Festus Osifo, disclosed this in Abuja yesterday while speaking on the unavailability of Naira notes and PMS. They said they are monitoring the situation. They've given a time frame And after the ultimatum, if the situation does not improve, all affiliate unions, state councils, civil societies, traders, students, allies, market men and women, religious leaders are hereby put on red alert. So they're asking the government to take steps that will assuage the suffering of the people. Also, the youths have asked the president to sack the Central Bank of Nigeria Governor, Godwin Emefiele, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timipre Silva, and the General Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, NNPCL, Mele Kyari, for alleged gross incompetence. I don't know if that would be possible.
How do you evaluate the president now?
As
the part of these three persons.
As the minister of
these are guys that all of this, immediately the CBN will take direct instructions from the president.
From the president.
And whatever is happening now, we'll discuss with the president and give his approval. The NNPC, works directly with the Minister of Petroleum, which invariably is the president. The Minister of State for Petroleum is a junior minister to the president. So if they are fired for incompetence, then what happens to the person
that they all report
and
to?
Control them.
It's okay.
That they all report to. You see the order.
Yes. So that's why there's not going to be any. That's why there's not going to be any sack happening.
Of course, I will sacking you.
Okay. So.
I mean, president is not even used to sacking people anyway. So.
But he sacked the NYSC DG.
That one, you need there's always a one-off. God knows what that one. He just get. He was just on luck. There's always a one-off. So sometimes it happens. But generally, the president is not used to firing people.
It's okay.
No matter how incompetent you are around him, I think he has some fault for people who don't really do their job well. I don't know, but he's not used to sacking people.
The kind person. All right. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, that's NMDPRA, has asked filling stations to continue to accept POS option for payment of petroleum products. Just this morning, Triple was giving some updates that some filling stations are actually collecting cash. That was Okwayemi yesterday. That some filling stations are insisting on cash so that they can do business with POS operators. They
direct you to a POS operator who's going to charge you, which is a racket on the
exactly. They are working together. But now the NMDPRA has insisted that they collect POS payments across all. All right, well, more details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Moving on very quickly, we also have here, town planners seek stiffer penalty for building collapse offenders. Okay, what do you say to that, Fuad?
Yes, of course, because again, you can't be losing people aimless. There are regulations to how to get your buildings done. There are tests that you need to do. There are regulatory things, that approvals that you need to get, and I think we discussed this severally until there are sanctions, where people are held to account for these things to continue to happen. It's just the normal thing that will happen. People should be punished. We cut corners and make people accused.
So the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, NITP, has urged the federal government to consider introducing stiffer punishment for anyone found violating building ethics. And the president noted that the impunity had resulted in several building collapses, added capital punishment for offenders will possibly force people in the production process to comply strictly with extant regulations. More details on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Also, fuel crisis. NNDPRA, Ipman, agreed to 172 Naira ex-depot price. And that is on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. I think that would inform why there are some filling stations that have come down with the prices, don't you think, for hard?
If they get it at 172, if man gets at 172, and how much will they sell? I don't know. I think we'll be looking at something around 200 to 20 from there. Most likely.
Well, as it is now, they are looking at the whole situation. We'll look at exactly what we have is that the National Operations Controller of Ipman has said all their members have been ordered to sell at 172. promising that any of its members that sell above the stipulated price would be reported to the authority. So anybody that sells above 172, and if any marketer is selling above that, the marketer should be reported. It's a long read. You can get all of the details on page.
We'll see how that works.
How it will work, yes, how it affects, what is happening out there. More details on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. So now you know that if you go to any filling station and you are having to pay above 300 naira or more than 250 at most, then you know that there's a problem somewhere.
I think the supply has gotten better, Sandra. Like I said,
yes.
most of filling stations,
You
the
mentioned
queues are not as long. So I think naturally the prices would adjust itself, and may see most of the filling stations now sell at the regulated price. But let's see how it goes.
Just as the GMD of NNPCL mentioned, let's give them the 1 week that they requested and see
our
how
family member that he is.
Yes, as our family member requested that we give them 1 week. So let's trust our family members as good family members, supportive family members. All right, and finally on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have here: gunmen ambush and kill 4 military officers in Delta State. Very unfortunate. And that is on page 27 of the Guardian newspaper. Also on the just at the footer here, we have Falana tasked CBN to obey Supreme Court's ex parte order. That's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Well, moving on now to Vanguard. You're listening to 98.3 Mainland FM. Vanguard newspaper, the major headline there: old notes, will obey Supreme Court ruling, says federal government. And the writers to that story: parties, other stakeholders split over Supreme Court ruling. Obey Supreme Court order, APC tells Buhari. APC using court to twist CBN to buy votes. That's coming from CNPP. We are against opposition to Apex Court's decision. That's coming from NNPP. Naira redesign policy, ill-timed, poorly implemented. That's Kachiko, as presidential candidate of the ADC. Why CBN must obey Supreme Court's ex parte order. That's Falana. Misguided elements are against court order, and that is from Bello Matawali, governor of Zamfara State. So the federal government saying that they are going to obey the court order from the Supreme Court order. Let's see that the federal government has said it will obey the ruling of the Supreme Court that is suspending the February 10 deadline given by the CBN on the exchange of Naira notes. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, confirmed this in an interview on a televised program yesterday. He said the government was hopeful that the ex parte ruling, which expires on Wednesday, February 15, would be upturned. He said the CBN, which is a necessary party to the issue, was not joined, and that consequently the Supreme Court lacked jurisdiction to decide on the matter in the first instance. Malami, however, said that the decision of the government to obey the Supreme Court order on the Naira deadline was based on the administration's respect for the rule of law. That's all I'm going to give out.
I think that we're going to go around by laws, and in democracy we have to obey the rule of law. So the court ruling until there's a separate ruling subsists, which is every party maintains status quo, obey that interim injunction until the court rules otherwise. I think that is enough. The Attorney General is also in court challenging that decision on jurisdiction. We'll see where the courts will decide on that. So let everybody just obey what it is, and then we'll have see what happens at the court. I think the most important thing for me is the February 15th to see what the Supreme Court will say on the case.
All right, but saying that, looking at the fact that the Minister of Justice is saying, the CBN was not, included as a party in the, suit, but then also coming and countering and saying that jurisdiction on ground, that when you talk of monetary policy, CBN is an indispensable and necessary party in the matter. So whether or not, it were joined formally or officially, it's an agency that is extremely important
which is what Falana was explaining. to the federal government.
Thank you. That's it. So a situation where the central bank is not joined in the matter as a party, and if the central bank as an institution is not joined, the law is clear that the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court cannot be invoked. That's what this AGF is saying.
You know, Sandra, Sandra, lawyers are going to toss around these days. I don't know.
Yes, exactly.
But I know that a lot of times too, you find courts making pronouncements and judgments on issues like this without recourse to technicality. When the issue is more about national interest and human interest and about the state of the nation, sometimes they deal with the technicalities and look at the overall good of the nation. But again, that will be for the lawyers to go and start and just say.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we have it now, political parties, some stakeholders are divided over what the president should do with the Supreme Court's interim order that is asking. Well, those who agreed with Supreme Court and urged, the ruling APC, the NNPP, Zamfara Governor, ADC presidential candidate Dumebi Kachiku, Mr. Femi Falana, SAN, among others. However, some registered, or the umbrella of registered political parties and political associations, that's Conference of Nigeria Political Parties, CNPP, cautioned against extending the deadline for the use of old notes and accused the APC of arm twisting the CBN to buy votes at the forthcoming general polls. But my question is, why they focus on the APC? Is it on the APC that that has the allegation hanging over their head?
The president of the APC is not supporting this thing. Again, we have to be careful to politicize this thing. I'm saying that look, before we talk about politics, we should first look at human interest, and that's why I would consider anybody who sees everything about this issue, in the face of politics as irresponsible. The lives of the people should matter before we talk about politics, for God's sake. And these CNPP guys, I didn't think we should be sending to anarchy. We should not obey the court order. We should wait for the result of the case of the Attorney General and the ruling on February 15. Why eating up the politics? I saw a press conference held by some group of political parties, and the way they were talking all manner of, what I can call like various statements that they were making. And I say, can only all the responsible in the people do?
All right.
Is everything the same from the face of politics?
It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. But at least they said that they're going to obey. So let's just move with that.
They will obey now.
They said they're going to obey it, and then
they may obey without because again, you see, even if they obey, I think ordinary Nigerians are not really interested in the back and forth in court. They just want money.
Just make a cash.
When they are telling the next and they see them that you just need the cash available. They are not all the 20 that they are taking in the Supreme Court. They're not even, anyway.
It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, that's it. Those are the major trending stories across all the papers this morning. So you can get all of the details as mentioned earlier. This is Trends in the Papers. We're moving on now to Mainland Focus. We'll be back by 8:40 for that, where we open up the phone line for you to be a part of the conversation as regards the focus for the day. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. Thank you for standing by, and we will be right back.